Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome in to another edition of the NCAA Basketball Hour. I am the big man on campus. It is Wednesday, November 6th, 2019, day number 2 of college hoops. We'll get into the card here, try to find some angles, try to go through some info here to get you on the right side tonight of your card. Again, make sure you're checking me out on Twitter if you're new, at Jeff Nadu. We got a lot of great content here after us. Tonight, we will have the NBA preview where we'll talk some NBA with Ski Profits. Make sure you join that show. Hope everyone's having a great day. As always, glad to have you here. Hopefully we get a nice group in here like we had last night. We'll try to find an angle or two on this card. As I said, I'm not going real deep in betting these games early on. Maybe one or two here and there. Try to find an angle, try to make a little cash. But right now, it's really about evaluation and kind of seeing how these teams shake out. You want to get 2 or 3 games under the belt. Last night, that was obviously evident in some of these games with the inability of certain teams to make shots. We had some big upsets as well. Some bad defense, some good defense, some bad shooting. Obviously, it looks like the three-point line being moved back has hurt a little bit. So I feel like if you're looking at overs, which I'll get into a couple tonight, make sure you're looking at teams that are good in transition, can operate in the half court, don't necessarily need the three-point line to go crazy. There's got a lot of interesting games tonight, whether it's slow-tempoed with a Virginia and Syracuse or maybe a more high-tempo game in Notre Dame and UNC. We'll get into all those here in just a second. Please do me a favor. If you're on Twitter, hit the retweet button when you see this link go out. Make sure people know we're on. Again, it's only day 2, so want to make sure people know we're back here on the channel. So thank you for that, guys. I appreciate you all. We'll get to some shout-outs here in just a second, and then we'll take questions as well a little bit later. So all right, let's get into the show. Before I do that, though, I want to let everybody know we have a new sponsor for the show, and it's really kind of a lifestyle sports brand, but I've done some work with them. I write for them. Want you to go check them out. Good friends of mine, Jeff Slaughter down at pubsportsradio.com. Want to have you to go check out all the content going on over there. There's some great UFC stuff, a lot of soccer content. I write blogs on there for soccer and other things. So make sure you go on and check it out. pubsportsradio.com, kind of an up-and-coming group doing some work and writing some blogs and getting you kind of taken care of in some of the niche sports. So go check out pubsportsradio.com and check out what's going on over there. All right, let's get into some breakdowns here. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk for the next 10 minutes, go over some games here and try to find some angles. So sit back, get your pen and pad out. We'll get to some questions here in just a little bit. All right. First game, Notre Dame UNC. I talked about this game earlier on our show, The Right Side of Campus. This is a great, fascinating game because so many things are fascinating when the season starts. And one of them is obviously teams that bring everybody back and teams that don't. And you look at UNC, seemingly every season, for the most part, they're locked and loaded with new recruits and new talent. But unlike this year, that they had last year, they don't necessarily have a lot of returning talent, whether it's, just the guys that they've lost over the last couple of seasons. You welcome back Sterling Manley and Leaky Black and a few others, but for the most part, this is a team that's going to be fairly, basically centered around Cole Anthony. The great thing about UNC is the offense that they play is going to be perfect for Cole Anthony. It's let's get out in transition, let's rebound misses, outlet pass to a trailer, and easy, quick possessions, 10 seconds or less. That's the goal of this offense. The possession needs to be quick. They want to get quick buckets, easy buckets, rebound missed opportunities, and then also on offense, rebound missed opportunities. They're one of the better rebounding teams in the country every season. Basically, all of that adds up to 85, 90 points a game. That's what they're going to do. UNC this year also has the great fortune of they welcome in some really good transfer players that can just score the basketball, whether it's Christian Keeling, who was down at Charleston Southern and was giving them 20 points a game, or, a guy like the kid from William & Mary they brought in, All these guys are shooters that can extend the floor and create in the half court as well as in transition. Cole Anthony's going to be the leader with the basketball in his hands, but you look at this team, you wonder defensively, how do they fare? I don't think they're too bad. I don't think they're the greatest defensive team in the world, but I think they'll be pretty solid in this conference. They have good defenders like Black and Carmody, or not Carmody, and Manley that can defend and kind of do some things in the half court. Obviously, cutting down on easy missed rebounds and things like that. Make sure you're cutting it to just one opportunity. Notre Dame, though, is, if I had to play this game and I'm looking at a side, I would probably be more interested in Notre Dame. Rex Pfluger's back, which is huge get for Mike Brey. This Mike Brey offense last year wasn't exactly strong. In fact, it was one of the worst he's had in South Bend. But they were injured up and down the report was injuries. And, you look at Pfluger, Carmody, Durham, Mooney, all their great players were out last year, and they were basically having to play with, reserves and just guys that had too big of responsibilities. Everybody's back this year, and that should be back, and we should revert back to some of the great years that Notre Dame's had. Some of the years of, Bonzie Colson and Luke Herringoti and Steve Asturia and Demetrius Jackson. Those are great offensive teams that Notre Dame was throwing out. I think this year they're going to get right back to it. I think John Mooney could be a really good big this year in the grand scheme of things. This is a guy that can create. He can make moves on the block. Him and Durham should be really nice pieces for this offense. I think this is a pretty solid starting five, and I think they could be a real sleeper in this conference. If you're going to give me a full team back this year and you're going to give me double digits against a team that I think is going to have to take care of some things early on, I think they'll be really good offensively. But I think this turns into kind of a high-scoring game. If this is a game in the 140s, I'll gladly take an over. Here. I think both these teams can create in the half court, and I think that will allow for not have you don't have so much a worry about scoring from the three-point line. I think both these teams can operate in the half court. So, there's a lot to look at here. I definitely like Notre Dame. I think there's points in this game. It should be a fun game to watch, to be real honest with you. I'm pretty excited about this one down in Chapel Hill. I talked about Belmont. I'm not going to really go in depth with Belmont just because I did earlier. But case in point, this team's going to score a lot this year. I mean, they have a perfect system. Casey Alexander takes over for Rick Byrd, and that's a really good thing to hear if you're a Belmont fan, because he's basically a protege of Rick Byrd, and he's a guy that I think with the right pieces, it's a well-oiled machine on offense. They're going to have a well-oiled machine. If you look at his offense at Lipscomb when he was there, they're very post-up reliant, transition reliant. They have a guy, Nick Muszynski, who's one of the better bigs in the country. He's a guy that with the right point guard is just going to be dink and dunk, turnarounds, making moves on the block. That's what they do. And if you know anything about Belmont's offense last year, they had a lot of success with just being sneaky and quick, off-made baskets, getting the ball in, getting it up the court quickly, catching the opponent off guard. They did it a lot last year in the NCAA tournament. That was one of the reasons they beat Temple University, because Temple was so quick or so slow to react to quick inbounds that they were just racing past them and scoring easy buckets and then outletting to Muszynski. So they're just a quick-witted, smart basketball team that really just kind of outsmarts you. They're playing a team tonight in Illinois State that I think as the season goes on, they will be what the Missouri Valley is, very very basic, very defensive-oriented, low possessions, grind it out, be more physical than you are. But in day one, I have some real concerns about Illinois State's offense. The great thing about Belmont is they thrive against bad teams that can't shoot, because off misses, they can get out in transition and really make you pay. You want to try to shut down Belmont by making shots, getting back defensively, and making them operate in other ways instead of transition. The problem with Belmont is they're so great really offensively in any category. That's why they're so tough to stop. I have some real concerns with Illinois State. I think the only thing good about them tonight is the fact that they are at home. This line hasn't moved a whole lot, which is definitely kind of odd. In fact, it's moved down, which is definitely a concern. I'm going to go ahead and guarantee that Sharps are taking the Redbirds here, but With a new team, with a lot of new faces around Illinois State, I, for one, I'm going to be enamored in watching Belmont play tonight. Am I going to bet this game? Probably not. I think Illinois State and brass tacks coming down at the end of the day are going to be a pretty good defensive team. But we've seen Belmont just shred these kind of teams. I'll be interested in seeing how Belmont gets on tonight with a new coach. My guess is they don't miss much of a beat. Let's make some shout-outs here. Let's give some shout-outs out and get into some other games. And get into some smaller games. That's kind of my goal tonight. I want to get into some smaller angles here. Thank you, Mike, Blake, Walters, Matt, SD, Mike Nelson. I'm sorry, not Mike, M. Nelson. SD, Cap'n 24/7, Hal Abrams, Tug Welsh, AB Sports, Russ B, Paco Healy, Perfect Rotation. All you guys here, thank you for watching the show. I appreciate you all tuning in. Bruce Shad, what's happening? What's happening? Settle down, Koi. Listen, Koi, do me a favor, bro. Relax yourself, sit back, and just listen, okay? I'm gonna go over as many games as I can. Now you're saying you want NBA. Listen, bro. What does the show say? The NBA show is at 6:30. If you don't want to listen to college basketball, then wait for 6:30 and you can listen then. This is a NCAA basketball show. Okay, it clearly states that in the title. We have an NCAA basketball. Let me just explain how this channel works. At 5:00, we have a college basketball show, and at 6:30. We have a Belmont or an NBA show at 6:30. That's how this show works, and that's how this channel works. So listen, if you don't want to look in college, well, I don't. That's not my. I'm sorry that you're from Europe, but that's how the show's going to work. So if you want NBA, you got to wait till 6:30. If you want college hoops, you got to wait till 5, and that's where we are now. Belmont is on the road. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Thank you. I know. Thank you. Thank you, buddy. I didn't know that. I'm glad you brought that to my attention. That's one of the reasons I'm not running to the window to get on this game. But I'll be interested in watching. I'll be interested in watching Belmont tonight. Again, my guess is they don't miss very much offensively. Justin, what's happening? Thank you for watching. Kendrick Walker, thanks for watching. Everyone's giving you a hard time today. I mean, you're always going to have people that are, I've often said, if you could cure cancer and someone will complain it wasn't done quick enough. So there's always someone that has an issue with what you're doing. Either way, I appreciate everybody checking out the show. Let's get into some other games here. Syracuse and Virginia up in the Carrier Dome. This is a fascinating game because there are so many new faces on both these teams. Obviously, Virginia won the national title last year, and, they had guys jettisoned to the NBA, Ty Jerome, Kyle Guy, and DeAndre Hunter. But the cupboard is not bare for Tony Bennett. You have Kyahi Clark coming back, who I think is going to be a really good point guard for this team. And he showed late in the season that he's ready for this kind of game and this kind of role. They welcome back Braxton Key. They welcome back Mamadi Diakite, Jay Huff. Everybody's back there. And I think, I think we have to always understand that the last year with Virginia is not what they are. They're not usually ever a great offensive team, but they always are a great defensive team. They basically are lethal to play against. They don't let you score. They basically say to you, okay, we're going to create a wall around the paint and make you shoot bad shots. Turn you over, put you in bad, precarious situations. That's what they do. And that's why the offense and defense and everything is slowed down. Offensively, I think they revert back to what they usually are. A average to below average offensive team. I'm not saying they won't score, but they're not going to score like they did last year. I think there are some reasons to be excited, though, with the offense. I think Braxton Key is a good offensive player. I think Jay Huff will take a nice step forward. And they have some shooters this year. Casey Morsel is a guy that can really shoot the ball. Tomas Woldentase, he's a great shooter as well. Really knockdown guys, and I think that's going to really be where they kind of make their money. The great thing about Virginia is they don't need to be great offensively because they can hold teams to 55 points a game. Tonight, I don't see any difference in that thought process. Syracuse has got a lot of question marks. They lost 4 of their top 5 players last year. They've got a lot of young guys that are basically going to be vaulted in to play the best defensive team in the country. I think what this spells tonight is a low-scoring game. As far as the side's concerned, Syracuse is definitely a very sharp side, but I think one thing that we've learned over the years is betting against Virginia and betting on the other team that they play to score is not a great proposition. Do I think Virginia is what they were last year? No, I don't, but I think they're really good. So I don't have any interest in Syracuse. And I think the great thing about the Syracuse zone over the years was always the fact that, look, up until 5 years ago, it was still a fairly rudimentary thing in college basketball to just operate in half court, try to find the best shot and score. Nowadays, it's very three-point reliant. You have a lot of shooters out there. And the zone, I think, is less and less a good defense. In this day and age in college basketball, most teams can just shoot over a zone. Do I think Virginia can do that? I think at times they can do that, and I think they'll do enough to cover this game, but I'm not really depending on them to do it. In this game, if I was going to play it, which I'm not, I would bet the under because I feel like if you have any total from Virginia, especially in the first game of the season with a lot of new faces against another team with a lot of new faces in the 120s, I'm willing to say the game will still go under. Keep in mind, in the last three games against Syracuse, Virginia's won those games by an average of over 20 points a game. Now, again, last year's team was a bit different, but there's still a lot of wiggle room there to win this game by 3 or more. I think this is a big, sharp public split. I think the whole world will be on Virginia. Sharps will be on the Syracuse side. Syracuse is going to have some ugly times this year offensively. Jared DeClark, give me a lock. Listen, man, it's day 2 of college basketball. I'm not gonna admit to that. I don't do that sort of thing. So, and again, if you tell another user to shut up, you're gonna be kicked off. We don't put up with that around here. Everyone can offer their thoughts and concerns. Don't come in here and demand anything, because that'll be your quick way out of here. Don't be a dick. Don't be a douche, okay? Be a fucking human being and act like us, okay? Don't tell people to shut up, especially people that have been in here a while. I love loyalty. I like loyal people. And for some guy that I've never seen in here to just come in and demand things, it's not going to happen. Don't do it again. Be a normal human being, and you'll be treated like one. It's pretty simple. And don't call me Jeffy boy, okay? I'm not your fucking dog, okay? Thank you, Perfect Rotation. Glad to see you're in here. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Paco. What are my thoughts on Florida State Pitt? Well, look, I think Florida State should be able to do what they want to do tonight. They're such a deep team. Not a game I'm real interested in. I've not been real interested in what Pitt has thrown out. I think they're going to get better under Capel. They're getting there, but this team's a far cry from the days of Jamie Dixon and Lamar Patterson and Gary McGee and Brad Wanamaker. Those guys aren't walking through the door. This is a team that has some growing pains. It's going to take some time. Florida State should win. Didn't look much into it. All right, let me get into some smaller games tonight. I think another game that's low scoring is going to be JMU and Charlotte. This is an interesting game here because Charlotte, not a lot of people know their coach, Sanchez, is actually a Tony Bennett disciple. He was an assistant there for 12 years, and he's really tried to bring that system to Charlotte. The problem was last year, and why they were so bad, was because it was basically they wanted to defend and slow teams down. That's what he wanted. but he had athletes that wanted to play in transition, so it was really a throwaway season for Charlotte. Coming back this year, there should be a better grasp on what he wants to do as a coach. And I think what it's going to mean early on is a lot of low possession games, a lot of grinded out defensive battles, not a lot of great offense, and a lot of question marks. Charlotte wants to play like Virginia, but that's going to take some time to get to. But I do think they can do it early on. Tonight against James Madison, I actually think we're going to have a pretty low-scoring game here because James Madison is a team that's very guard-oriented. They're very good defensively. That's one thing that Lou Rose has been able to do there. They've actually been pretty good defensively, for the record. They do have good guards. Banks and Lewis are really good. And I think that's where this game will be won. I think JMU is a better basketball team because they have guys like Darius Banks and Matt Lewis that can take a game over and find ways to score. This total's come kind of down from where it was. I thought 132 was a bit low. It was up towards 135. Now it's kind of back to 134. I think this is a game played in the 60s, low 60s. I think that the pace is not going to necessarily be there. I think it's going to be a lot of long, drawn-out possessions, a lot of feeling each other out early on. It wouldn't surprise me if this game at halftime is like 28-22 or something like that. First half under might be really, really a solid play in this game, just because I don't think you're going to have two offenses just going to be really efficient and go quick and go nuts. Plus, with some of the new rules, three-point shooting I think will probably be at a premium, and that's not really what Charlotte's going to do anyway. Their goal is just keep games low scoring and try to win them and graze by. So, and again, JMU is not a particularly good shooting team either. First half in this game, I have some interest in it, to be honest. I don't play a lot of first halves, but I think this could be a tough game to watch. 63 seems a bit high. So there's an idea for you. Charlotte's team total at under 30.5. I mean, both these teams, I think, have trouble scoring. So if I'm watching this game, I'm looking at this game. If I'm looking at it, I've been looking at a lower scoring game here. You could have got 135.5 a little earlier, which, again, shows like this are tough because, as the season goes on, the lines they won't move as much. But I think this game's a low scoring basketball game. So take that for what it's worth. Thoughts on Merrimack and Maine tonight? Yeah, I talked about Merrimack. I think they're going to catch this conference by storm a little bit with their ability to zone teams. The great thing about this conference is a lot of these teams are kind of freewheeling, man-to-man teams. So you can create offense and you can kind of get into your sets and do that. This conference, the NEC, they don't see a lot of zone, frankly. I mean, it's a lot of transition-based offenses. Go quick. Kind of create in the half court and do what you want to do. A zone's going to be interesting, and their coach is excited about it. I think if you read out from what they've talked about, Merrimack is interesting in this conference because of the ability to play zone. That's kind of different, as I said. You don't usually see it a ton. So they'll have interest in – it'll be an interesting conference. This Maine team is also kind of interesting in themselves, is in the fact that Maine's coach is Richard Barron, who was actually a coach for the women's team and decided he wanted to go coach the men's team at Maine, which – is kind of odd. There's a lot of international players on this team. I mean, you have guys from, Serbia, England, the Slavic countries. I mean, you have a little of everything on this team. So, Maine's a bad team. I mean, there's not much to really like about them. Merrimack's interesting because they have obviously the ability to play zone, and they also have Javarius Hayes, who is just a scorer. Javarius Hayes is from Paterson, New Jersey. He's a terrific scorer, really just one of those good New Jersey guards. He was at St. Anthony for a few years, and the fact that he went up to Merrimack's pretty cool. I think Merrimack's going to be an interesting team to watch. Hayes is the best player in the court. So if I had to do anything there, I would look towards taking Hayes just because I think he's the best player. What else do we have here? Any thoughts on Cincinnati and the Buckeyes? Yeah, I think both teams are interesting. I'm definitely interested in this Ohio State team. I want to see how DJ Carton looks. That's kind of my concern in this game and why I wouldn't play it. Carton's a freshman. This is a good, solid team that he's playing here. I just kind of wonder with Cincinnati, where does the scoring come from outside of Cumberland? Because, he's a great player, but, outside of him, who's going to pick up the slack? Is it his cousin, Javen Cumberland? Is it, Trey Scott? Is it Keith Williams? Who picked up the scoring here? Because what I see here is I see two Cumberland family members kind of doing what they do, and I'm trying to find another guy that can be a double-digit scorer for them. We're really every season they always kind of have these like two really good players that can give you 20 a game, and then it's a lot of like 7 to 9 points a game, and we rebound and we do our thing. They're going to have to be big tonight because Wesson is really good. CJ Walker's a transfer from Florida State to Ohio State. That this starting five is good. I'm just not sure Cincinnati's ready for this kind of game. How good are they on defense with a new coach? I think there's a lot of question marks in this game. The one for Ohio State being, how does DJ Carton handle being the point guard of this team? Because freshman in this kind of role is tough. Kazi Chief Gang. What's up, man? Kazi, who's part of the Chief Gang. Shout out to the Chief Gang. My guys, shout out to the Chief Gang. Any thoughts on St. John's and Mercer? No. St. John's is in kind of a rebuild mode. Mike Anderson. So no, I don't know what we're going to get out of St. John's. As far as Mercer, I like Bob Hoffman. I'm always a Bob Hoffman kind of guy, but I don't think they're a particularly great team either. I think they're kind of in that mid-level SoCo team. They're not as good as Furman and Sanford and East Tennessee State and those kind of teams. But, I think they're good enough to, beat the Western Carolinas and the Chattanoogas. And do I think they can go up to New York and win? No, not particularly. I think the one thing about Mercer that I like is they went out and got Masai Bender, who is at West Virginia. Pretty decent player, just didn't really ever catch on. They have some scoring on this team, though. Ross Cummings and Ethan Stair, two seniors, pretty good players. In a rebuilding effort for St. John's, I wouldn't just take this game lightly. I mean, Mercer's well coached. They have some guys that can score. They have some guys that are in roles that, probably are going to suit them. Masai Bender can play at the D1 level. I mean, he played at West Virginia. With a new team, with a lot of new faces for St. John's, I think Mercer can maybe hang around in this game. There's a lot of points to give a well-coached Bob Hoffman team. But again, it's a tough travel spot. It's a long trip. And you are playing a team that's kind of a higher level athletically than you are. One other game I had my eye on, actually two other games I had my eye on. Southeast Louisiana is going to go play their stablemate in the state of Louisiana in Tulane. I've talked in the offseason about my interest in Tulane. I love Ron Hunter. I think he's really as good a coach as you can find. And I think defensively, he's a maniacal lunatic. Is he a little dependent on one guy to score? Yes. If you looked at his teams over the years with his son RJ and DeMarcus Simmons last year, he is a little reliant. But I think this year, what makes Tulane so interesting is they have a plethora of guys to go to. So whether it's Ray Mbaono or Nick Thomas or KJ Lawson, there's a lot of interest with Tulane. And I'll tell you one thing. Do I think they're a bottom tier team in this conference? No. The problem is this is a pretty good conference. But would I be more interested in them than like Tulsa and, Central Florida? Yeah, kind of. I mean, this starting five is actually pretty good. I mean, Ona Embo's pretty good. Jordan Walker was a ball hawk at Seton Hall. He's going to force turnovers. And that's the thing about Ron Hunter's system. It's all about turnovers. They want to create havoc in the defensive backcourt and front court. And what I really worry about tonight against Southeast Louisiana, if you know anything about Southeast Louisiana, they had major turnover problems last year. And this year, what makes them even worse is their two best players, Moses Greenwood and Marlon Veal, graduated. So Jay Lodner, who is the coach down at SELA, I think they have some real question marks. They had and shout out to the great three-man weave for breaking this down. Southeast Louisiana had the third highest turnover rate in the country last year. Now in your first game of the season, you got to go down to a burgeoning program and take on a team that has their hands in the cookie jar all the time. This is a terrible matchup for Sela here. It just is. Unless Von Julian and Laquan Butler and those kind of guys can figure out how to not turn the ball over. I mean, to put this into perspective, like Von Julian, who is going to be one of the guards at Sela, I mean, he turned the ball over on 33% of his possessions. That's terrible. And now you're playing a team with Jordan Walker and Nick Thomas and KJ Lawson that are so opportunistic on defense. I think Tulane has some real success tonight. I like this team. I'm interested in seeing how they handle. Keep in mind, over the last 3 seasons at Georgia State, Ron Hunter's team turned the ball over 20% or more every season. They just disrupt everything. And with a young team with really very little talent, I think Sela struggles in this game. It's just not a good matchup for them. It's kind of a brutal matchup, frankly, especially with how bad they were last year turning the ball over. And you like some of the people that Ron Hunter brought in. I mean, KJ Lawson played at Kansas and Memphis. I think he's going to have a better time of it against competition like this. Jordan Walker was a really good player at Seton Hall. He's kind of that quick, just hands all over the place. He's going to get his hands in there. Christian Thompson was a good player down at Rhode Island. And if you know anything about Rhode Island system, I mean, that's really guard oriented. They love to turn you over. So this is a tough matchup for Sela. It just is. I don't know how else to kind of say it. So that's a rough matchup tonight. If I had to play a game, I would probably go with Tulane if I had to play something tonight. So they have plenty of options. If I think Nick Thomas is suspended. So I mean, I don't know if you're going to have him tonight, but I think you have other options. That'll be enough here. I mean, KJ Lawson should really benefit initially against teams like this. KJ Lawson's a guy that was at Kansas. I mean, he should be able to dominate a team like this. Summer McDonald, thanks for watching. Alex Ledsinger, thanks for watching. UC Santa Barbara, Jackson State. And someone's asking, is Jackson State a team that you would fade in the SWAC? No, not particularly. Jackson State actually is one of the decent teams down there. Jackson State plays some pretty good defense. They have a kid named Roland Griffin, a big. He's a pretty good player. Javarius McKinnis. They have actually a pretty good front court, Jackson State. Now, look, I mean, do I trust them against like a Santa Barbara? No, because Santa Barbara's got weapons all over the place. I think they win the Big West this year. This is a weird matchup. A SWAC against a Big West team, kind of weird. But don't sleep on Jackson State. Pretty good defensive team. Can they hang in this game the whole way? I don't know. Probably not. Are they an automatic fade like you're asking? No. The three teams I would not fade in this conference are Grambling, Jackson State, and Texas Southern. But again, when you're playing good Power 5, high-level mid-major teams, I wouldn't exactly have any problem betting against them. Look at Texas Southern last night. They got destroyed. But are they Mississippi Valley State? No, they're not. They're actually a team that's probably going to be pretty decent in this conference and maybe challenged to win it. So watch out for Santa Barbara. Max Heidegger, Sal, good players. And by the way, if you would have faded Mississippi Valley State last night, you would have won, just like I told you here. Iowa State put up 110 in that game. So keep an eye on that. There's actually not a lot of them tonight. There's not a lot of like big P5 teams or big mid majors against SWAC or MEAC teams. So we'll kind of have to take the night off from that. But I'll tell you a team that should have fucking rolled tonight is Arizona. I think they set a little bit of a message tonight. I think. I mean, northern Arizona blows. I mean, they are complete shit. Like complete shit. So, I mean, if you're looking for a blowout tonight, I think Arizona sends a little bit of a message. This Arizona team's good, man. I mean, they have great guards. Nico Mannion's going to be a fun player to watch all season. And as far as northern Arizona, I mean, I didn't exactly put them in like the top 5 of the Big Sky. I mean, the bottom 4 teams in the Big Sky are horrific. I mean, there is just no talent on these teams. None. I mean, northern Arizona has nobody. Like, fucking nobody. So, I mean, good luck with that. And generally, they get destroyed by these kind of teams. So, good luck. 22.5 seems a little bit low. Thanks for watching, Mike DeSola. Did I talk about Wake, BC? No, I don't have any opinion on it. I couldn't care less about that game, to be honest. Wake is a bad team. Danny Manning is probably going to be fired pretty soon. And BC, they just, I don't know, just don't do much for me. You'll see most of my games this year, a lot of it has to do with mid-majors. I mean, I'll definitely get involved early watching some of these big teams, but most of my betting is mid-major based. I just find a lot more success there. Okay, let's do one more game. And this is a game that I think if you're looking for a big dog tonight or an over, particularly over, I think you might have one tonight. And it's Mount St. Mary's against Georgetown. I want to see what this number is. I forgot to look up the over here before I looked here. I got to find it here. By the way, Arizona's up to 23 for anyone playing along at home. Don't know if I had anything to do with that, but it quickly changed. Of course, I didn't have anything to do with that. All right, Georgetown and Mount St. Mary's. We got a total of 152.5 here. This is how lame I am. I actually get excited about like Mount St. Mary's, and I guess for me, like I just know like what I think they can be, and like it's kind of exciting. Mount St. Mary's is basically a team that their goal is to, according to their coach, I want to play faster. I prefer playing like that crazy lightning speed. They want to go quick. They want to turn you over. They want to go crazy. They want to go nuts. They want to, just have fun in the transition. And you look at last year, I mean, they had some success against some good teams. They hung in games because they don't go away. They're a pretty good shooting team. They're pretty good offensively, and they're going to have some fun on offense. So, again, you look at their opponent tonight in Georgetown, that's exactly how they want to play also. You look at last year, they were 10th in the country in possessions per game. And here was the crazy thing about Georgetown. They were actually pretty good last year offensively, and they had guys that, I mean, you remember last year, I think it was last year where Patrick Ewing was basically on camera telling his team, like, those aren't your shots. Stop shooting that way. They couldn't shoot them, but they had bad shooting nights. I mean, they just didn't, a lot of their shots were bad. Govin wasn't a real great player. And your 7 is a pretty good offensive player. I think they have a great offense this year. And as usual, I think they go really fast. Now, look, North Florida last night I thought would be a shootout, and it didn't quite make it there. But on paper, if I'm looking at the schematics with these two teams, it should be a pretty run and gun type of game here. I really like what Georgetown does at the guard positions with Akinjo and McClung. Josh LeBlanc has turned into a pretty good player. And again, I know people argue with me here, but they're not the greatest defenders. Like, they have some potential, but I don't love them defensively. And I think your 7 is a better player offensively than Govin is. So on both sides, I'd expect lightning pace. That's just how they play. Question is, can Mount St. Mary's score enough points? And we're going to need them to probably get to 70 here. I prefer the total a bit lower. I would love to have gotten like 147, 148. It's at 152. I don't think Mount St. Mary's is a terrible bet. I guess I just wonder how good are they offensively. And that's what sucks about early in the season. We don't have a ton to go off of. So then we should get a pace here for sure. What else do we have here? A couple comments. James Bew, thanks for watching. Big man, have you ever watched Never Die Alone or Paid in Full? What are your thoughts on them? Never Die Alone, I've never seen. Paid in Full is one of the best movies ever. Cameron is unbelievable. Wood Harris is unbelievable. Mekhi Phifer, unbelievable. I mean, it's one of my favorite kind of urban movies. Your He Got Games, I wouldn't even, He Got Games more of a sports movie, but, kind of your drug culture movies, State Property, New Jack City, those kind of movies. I love Paid in Full. It's right up there for me. Big fan of it. Some of the conversation in the movie is terrific. How about Missouri tonight? I think they blow out Incarnate Word. They shouldn't have any trouble. Incarnate Word is a horrific defensive team, and that isn't going to change. They shouldn't have any trouble there. Guard should be good enough for Missouri. I definitely would agree with you on that. All right, then. So there's the show, guys. Plenty of great content tonight. Again, I'm not going to necessarily give you guys a play of the day. That will kind of start once I get started this season. With my premium selections, and then I'll kind of go with it from there. If I had to play a game tonight, I would probably take Tulane. I think they're just a real bad matchup for Southeastern Louisiana. But again, new coach there at Tulane. Is it too early to lay points with them? It could be. But yeah, I think with everything, I think JMU Charlotte, I think that's a knockdown, drag-out game. A lot of low possessions there. I think Mount St. Mary's Georgetown's kind of a higher scoring tempo-based game. It's going to be about, can those teams finish? Same with Notre Dame and North Carolina. A couple of the added games, Bryant, Rutgers. Rutgers, I think, is an exciting team this year. I think they're a better scoring team. I think the question with them in this game is, can they score enough points to cover this game? Bryant's not going to put up a ton of issues here, so they should be able to. Or I'm sorry, that game's actually tomorrow. What the hell am I looking at? My fault. Well, there's a head kind of an advantage for you tomorrow. Your question tonight is, in figuring out in your breakdowns, can Rutgers score enough points to cover the 21-point number? Because I think one thing we know about Bryant is they're not going to put up much fight. One other point last night, Chicago State, arguably the worst team in the country, lost. Is going to be a team that I think you're going to want to fade. They are a team that are really bad. I'm kind of keeping it in the Chicago area. DePaul as a game tomorrow against Chicago University, which I didn't even know Chicago University existed. They're laying 33. That's interesting. We'll see. But there you have it. There's my games for tonight. There's my thoughts for tonight. Have I ever seen White Gold on Netflix? No, I have not. Thanks for watching, George Young, our guy, George Young, from Blow fame. He was in the movie Blow. He was the focus of that movie. Made millions of dollars selling cocaine. Blow, one of my favorite movies of all time. If you're coming in late, you can gladly re-listen to the show. We're about over here. Join me at 6:30. Ski Profit and I will break down the NBA card. We'll finish out the night with a little pro action. So make sure you join us for that. I'm the Big Man on Campus. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow here in the NCAA Basketball Hour.